Well, welcome everybody. We're doing a podcast today with Simple Solar. I've got Tom over here and Jeff. Tom's the owner and Jeff is the operations manager and master electrician that kind of keeps track of all the magic that goes on to the Simple Solar installation. I'm Paul Klassen, CEO here at Pinnacle. Really excited to do this podcast here this morning, and really thank you, Tom and Jeff, for joining us today.
No, it's our pleasure. Always excited to talk about solar.
Indeed. All of us have our respective disciplines, right? We are GCs and general contractors, and of course we do the whole project. You guys are one element of it, but we're so excited for this podcast. We did a laneway here recently, Tom and Jeff, that you guys were involved in. It was really cool because you were actually referred to us by the client who had used you previously.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. And so we're just in the final stages of getting a permit approval for that laneway home. So excited to maybe do a part 2 of this and maybe we might even get some drone footage or something.
Sure,
we can do that. Panels. All right, we're going to jump right into the questions. I've got my cheat sheets here. Tom can talk, I'm sure, and Jeff can talk to the end of the world. Kind of like me and Forever Homes, just get me going, I can talk forever, but we'll jump right into the Q&As here. You know, you guys, solar panels, as we all know, are popping up everywhere, and this is kind of a loaded question, I suppose, but why do you think they've become popular in the last few years, guys? What's going on, Tom?
Well, especially in Alberta, the thing about solar is it helps with the home's financial situation. They do save money. Your electricity bill will be lower. And also, they are good for the environment. In Alberta, we have burned natural gas to make the majority of our electricity, so our electrical grid comes with a carbon footprint, and solar PV really reduces that carbon footprint. So you don't only just save money, but you save the environment as well. Kind of defeats that old debate about either we can do something for the economy or we can do something for the environment, but we can't do both. Well, with solar, you do both.
Gotcha. And we're going to get into dispelling some myths today about things that I've heard, and we'll get down to that towards the end of the podcast here today. But thanks, Tom. I mean, it's awesome to hear that you can do both. You don't have to trade off one or the other. So, I understand the electrical utility limits. Basically, how much solar can you put on a house? To me, it's somewhat unfair. I think we'll probably not get into that dialogue because I have my theory on monopolies. But nonetheless, why is it that we're limited on solar on a house, guys?
Yeah, in Alberta, we've got the microgen regulation that we've had for about 15 years now. Before that, homeowners were not allowed to connect a solar system or any renewable energy system to the grid. They just weren't allowed. But since that regulation came in, we're allowed to do that. But the grid's been built up for 120 something years before that to send power one way from the generating stations to the homes. So you can't just arbitrarily start putting big generators, solar systems, out at some extreme limit of this whole vast network. So they had to come up with some kind of a metric to limit how much you can put at any one place. So they came up with the regulation that a homeowner can make as much electricity as they use over a year. So your generation has to be kind of sized to the amount that you use. So that's the regulation that came in, and for the most part, it works pretty good at keeping the integrity of the grid while still allowing individuals and businesses to connect renewable energy systems into it.
Yeah, so just to summarize from what I can understand here then, so it's whatever you've used historically on the electrical side of your home or your commercial building, that's what you can generate.
Yes, over the course of a year.
Yes.
So typically we're going to not generate as much in the wintertime when it's dark most of the day.
True.
And in the summertime when we got 16 hours of sunlight, then we're going to generate more.
It's a really cool, off the topic, but how many days of sunlight do we have in Calgary? It's like 300 and some odd?
Yeah, 320,
so, pretty incredible. But you've dispelled some myths too, even for those of you that might be watching from Vancouver area. There's still a lot of light no matter where you are in Western Canada. So
yeah,
kind of cool. Yeah. So next thing is kind of, I've read the news about solar. It seems to be getting cheaper. Obviously, there are various manufacturers around the world, But Tom, how can you put a little bit of relevancy to cost, just ranges? I'm not looking for actuals, but for those of you watching, I'm sure you're wondering, okay, how much does this cost overall? What we have done, Tom, thank you for providing these. We do have a couple of PDFs that you provided us that will hopefully we can add to this podcast as an attachment, and people can review the cost and the actual input costs, and then how that all relates. Where are we talking? Like let's talk an average suburbia home in Calgary.
Okay, so an average suburbia home in Calgary uses about 700 kilowatt hours of electricity each month. And you can look at your bill. Most people get them, but they don't really look at them. So see how many kilowatt hours you use, and that's your basis. And it's surprising, it's pretty level across the year. Some people do a little bit of electric heating in the wintertime. Some people do some air conditioning in the summertime. But generally, it's about 700 kilowatt hours every month.
Okay.
So for that level of generation, you need about a 7 kilowatt system, which is our technical terminology for the size of the solar array, and that's going to be around $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay. Yep. No, that's
installed
fair.
And operating. That depends on the site conditions. Obviously, we have more costs if we're at the top of a 3-story walkout with a 45-degree roof than we are on a ranch or bungalow, you know, with a 412 pitch and one great big flat.
Safety concerns, tying off, safety harnesses, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure are part of the process for sure. Yeah, no, that's good just to know the ranges, and of course that's not including any battery storage, which might be a part 2 of our podcast, because there's a whole lot of technical items that maybe some of you might want to know, not just necessarily all. Today's more of a high level, kind of layman friendly kind of pursuit of what solar's all about.
Right. So that budget number would be for a grid tied system.
Yep.
So when the grid is up, it's up. And unfortunately, when the grid is down, it's down. So that's,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something to keep in mind.
So that's interesting. That's actually, bringing light to maybe an unknown. So if your grid is down, your solar is as well.
Yes.
Because it's tied to the grid.
Yes.
Gotcha. So it's not going to augment your power unless you had a whole battery backup system.
That's
which is a whole other conversation. We won't.
And that is another conversation, which we're happy to have.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to keep this on track.
We will. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, now that we've talked about money, I came across I thought it was new news, and I sent it to you last night. Oh, no, I know about all that stuff. So CEIP, what are the kind of the government incentives? That's one of them. And what's that acronym stand for, maybe, Tom? And what's some of the, what are some of the incentives out there?
Right. So, starting with CEIP, that stands for Clean Energy Improvement Program. So it's known as PACE in other jurisdictions, but in Alberta, it's CEIP, that's how we call it. And it is a financing mechanism for energy efficiency upgrades on a property. So it can be windows, it can be insulation, it can be solar energy systems, and many other things. And what it is leveraging the already established property tax system. And so when this energy efficiency program is done on this property, the value of it's recognized on the property, and the payment is through the property tax system. So you're already paying bills every month for the property tax, while you pay another $100 or $200 a month there for your energy improvement programs.
Okay.
So that's how it's financed.
So it's actually financed by the government, it's amortized, which we'll talk about in a minute, but that's what that program is. So it's tagging onto your property taxes.
And because it's tied to the property taxes and it's behind the government, well, it's very secure. So you get very low financing rates. So today in Calgary, it's 3.4%, I think, for a 20-year term.
Awesome. So that's good. You just jumped right into that amortization period conversation. So 20-year am with 3.5% interest. Wow, that brings the payments way down. I think I saw your chart. It's that.
So once that's set up, your savings on your energy bill are more than the loan payments.
So that's the other question here. So you've got your you got GH loans, you got the CEIP. You can add it into your mortgage for a new build. And then you can amortize it over the entire 35. I think it's 30 year am now instead of 25. So there's different mortgage brokers have different solutions for that. Okay. But that's good to know. So let's just talk about that a little bit before we jump on to the next question. if what you just said is true, so which I know it is, so your financing costs are offset by your electrical savings. Are you saying this is a wash? It's a no money in for me. I invest the 15-20K, I amortize it through the government, and my energy cost savings are the same or more, and I wipe out my cost?
Yeah, largely you're pretty
Wow.
much there. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Depends on the site conditions and
course.
how much generation for the capital
Right.
investment, right? And there's a couple other benefits you get with a solar energy system in addition to saving on your electricity bill. So, and they're worth mentioning.
Okay.
The first one is carbon credits. So when you generate electricity from solar in Alberta, you are not generating carbon. So
Right.
you can get the credit for that. You register with a third party, and the purpose of these third parties is to trade in carbon credits, and they will pay you for those carbon credits.
So you're not only benefiting the environment, but you're getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic.
And you
Is
get
it
a, and you get
money,
a few
Tom?
hundred
Like,
dollars.
is it a few
It's
hundred?
a few $100 dollars.
Okay.
$200 or $300 a year, maybe
Okay.
$400 a year.
Yeah.
You know, but
There you go.
it
There you
adds
go.
up.
Nice family
then-
meal out, turkey dinner.
And the other key benefit is available from Solar Club savings.
Okay.
So the Solar Club is pretty much all of the electricity retailers in Alberta offer it now, including ENMAX, our largest one here in Calgary.
Okay.
And what they're doing, they will pay a premium for green carbon emission electricity.
Okay.
So when
So
you know you're going to be exporting certain months of the year
Okay.
in the summertime, you get onto this premium rate and you get paid a higher amount for when you know you're providing green electricity to the grid.
You have to apply to be part of the club? Or-
Yes.
Okay, so you got
Yes.
an application process.
Yes.
And that, if I understand, and whatever you sell back at higher, you paid higher rates.
Right.
Wow.
So it's kind of leveraging the fine print with this microgen regulation we were talking
Right.
about before that says you will get a credit for whatever your contract is. So what you're doing is changing your contract twice a year. Because once the days get shorter, you're not likely exporting.
Right.
So you want to get off that high rate contract.
Gotcha.
And you go back to a
Okay, so you
to a
stay in the
competitive
club
rate.
during the high rates and get out
You,
with
you stay in the club year round, but you change your contract. The club changes your
Okay,
contract
is it an
twice a year.
online process, simple to do, or?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
They've ironed it out. Yeah. So, but anyways, it
That's
can be
cool.
quite lucrative.
Yeah.
So you can get probably
It's
twice as much again as your carbon
It's
credits.
almost not quite like day trading, but in a way, it's like a stock, and you're
yeah.
seeing a drop in cyclical weather related. So you're able to bow out during the low rates, but buy in on the high rates.
Yeah. Now, you do have to pay attention to your energy. So in a
Right.
way, it's a good thing for people to actually be motivated to look at those
Watching your
bills, like I
energy bill.
mentioned, and so on.
Yeah.
People that aren't going to do that are going to forget that the days are getting shorter and so on.
Yeah.
They probably should think twice about getting into the club.
Fair enough. So stay out of the club if you're not prepared to watch your energy bill and get in and out in the
Yeah.
opportune times. Yeah, makes sense. That was really good. You taught me something that I wasn't aware of. A couple of those energy credits, the carbon credits, that's really cool. And then the club, I wasn't aware of that. So hopefully that helps all of you watching. But just summarizing a couple of, we're going to jump into some myths, dispelling some myths here in a minute. But for someone like in our world that's doing a renovation or looking to do a renovation, what's the opportune time? What's your recommendation on solar for that? Like backing up for a second, long before I met you, Tom, I was a huge advocate. This is probably 10 years running of running, no pun intended, running conduit into the attic so that we had a fish point so we can always add solar later. We drop conduit to the panel. I've been doing that for 10 years probably. Really important, simple little cost-effective thing, but it allows you to add solar later date.
Right,
Talk
right.
to us a little bit about that.
Well, that's very helpful. having a conduit. Those darned electricians, like this one beside me, they want a good hourly rate. So when they're spending time fishing a wire from one end to the other, it adds up,
Indeed.
right? So like everything else. If the conduit's been put in there, it's a lot faster to get the wire from
And
one
that's
end to the
after
other.
everything's buttoned up. I mean, before you can hardwire it, right? So you don't need the conduit. If we're,
That's correct.
Like we, on our laneway, we didn't need the conduit. We put it in, then realized we didn't need it.
Yeah.
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 Gotcha.
But before you get that far, if you're thinking about solar, whether it's next week or next year or next decade, where are you going to put the panels? So,
Great point.
And some sites really aren't suitable.
There you go.
Most of them are, but some people, if you're in a shadow behind a big high rise or something like that, then it's not going to work.
That's true.
So then just take it off the chart. But most homes are suitable. So, but have a plan for the panels, and especially if you're doing a renovation, right?
Right.
Sometimes there's a fan vent and so on, and they're right in the way. These panels are almost the size of a sheet of plywood now, and you go and put a fan vent there where it's convenient, and now you just kind of screwed up the whole area for a roof.
Yeah.
So
planning, you're talking about
plan
planning.
where the panels are going to go. East facing, south facing, west facing, where the slopes are.
Yep.
And some people will put on these little gable things on the roof because they kind of look nice, right?
Right.
Well, maybe they kind of look nice, but maybe we do some other detail so we can keep that for solar.
And
So
that's-
get the panel planning done.
Love that.
And then the conduit, that certainly speeds things up. And if you are thinking about battery backup in the future, which we'll talk about in another podcast, any kind of a backup power system is going to need an essential loads panel. So your fridge, your freezer, maybe your furnace or something, where you're going to charge your phone or something, those key circuits that we call the essential loads or critical loads need to be in a sub-panel.
Gotcha.
So if you're doing all this electrical work now, to put a sub-panel up and put those things in, it's a piece of cake.
Yep.
Right?
There you go.
And then later you put in your backup power system, then those are the ones that you want to do.
So you're just working with, we have our electricians that do our rough-ins and all of our primary electrical, but collaborating with you guys at the onset in the planning stage is so important. We actually do have a project coming up here that we really do need to talk to you sooner than later then, because we're just in the final stages of putting the permit plans together. So we'll get you guys involved. That's really good. I think I'm a huge advocate of being proactive, and this is just another example of that. Proactive planning. And then now you know your panel size, your sub panel for your essential loads, and all of that are addressed. Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Sounds good to me. When you're considering a solar installer, there's all kinds of, in our industry it's no different, right? There's those that are wannabes, and those are the real deal. So Tom, give us a little bit of history of Simple Solar, and then kind of jump into what would be some key vetting pieces that people should think about before they hire a solar company. How many years in business for you guys?
We've been around since 2006, so this is our 18th year, going into 19 years of business.
Wonderful.
So we've been around and survived the test of time.
Yep.
And with doing that, like, we treat every customer as our next reference, right? So
of course.
we've got hundreds of satisfied customers, a lot that will speak to us. That the basic fundamental ways we operate are basically with integrity. We do what we say we're going to do. We don't come after the fact trying to get more money.
Right.
If we make a mistake, we're going to admit to it, then we're going to make it right.
Yep.
Just basic things like
You're
that.
not perfect, hey Tom?
We're not perfect.
That's something
not yet.
The halo is just a little tilted.
But that's what we strive for.
You know what? And that's aligning expectations. I'm a big advocate of that. And I tell our clients, listen, we are not perfect. But to your point about 18 years, I always talk about a 15-year window in Alberta being, you should have a company that's been around 15 years or longer in anything you vet. Because we're cyclical in this province, as we all know. And with that comes pros and cons of business environments. So good on you. Right. And then I mean, it's just funny that some folks think that we are perfect and we never make a mistake. And maybe marketing sometimes can put that out there. Oh, we're perfect. We're amazing. Well, yes, we like to think that we are a wonderful group of people, but we do make mistakes. We're humans. We can't be programmed like a robot, but we make it right. And I think that's what you're saying, Tom. You guys make it right.
Yes, we'll make it right. Absolutely.
And you own it.
Yeah.
You own the problem.
We'll own the problem.
I very much like your reference to fixed costs, because as most of you know that might be watching this, Pinnacle's been an advocate of that, and we put a RSCC three-way guarantee in place 20 years ago, which is start date, completion date, and cost are guaranteed, unheard of in our industry. But that guaranteed cost, we do the heavy lifting up front, do all the hard work up front, so you as the homeowner don't have the surprise at the back end, and it looks like you guys do the same.
Yep, very much so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love the model. We'll jump right into, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. We'll jump right into maybe some misconceptions, and we'll wrap this up here. We're doing good on time. We try to get there in and out here in 30 minutes, and we're doing pretty good here, I think. But just debunk some misconceptions. So, how does the efficiency of panels, we talked about this a little bit before, vary with weather, with snow, location? Do panels work when it snows? What does that all look like?
Yeah, well, if there's a foot of snow on the panel, not very much sunlight's going through, and they literally convert sunlight to electrical energy.
They do. Okay, yeah, exactly.
So if they don't see the sun, then they aren't going to do anything.
Indeed.
But the other thing about that is the solar panels are smooth, black glass, basically. So any little bit that does come through turns to heat. You get a little bit of moisture there, and it slides off. So you will see, if you look, after a snowstorm, roof covered in snow, you'll see pretty quickly the snow sliding off the panels, but the snow sitting on all the other areas, right? So it doesn't stay there very long.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you don't really need to sweep it off. Gotcha. Occasionally, panels will get kind of dirty, accumulation of dust, and maybe some bird droppings and whatever. Yep. If you've got some poplar trees, sometimes they'll make a mess.
Indeed.
Generally, the stuff washes off with the rain, right? The next rain, and again, we get the wet snow, and it's like a heavy mat of sponge almost comes off. So they get them pretty clean. So generally, you don't have to clean them in our climate. But if you notice there's some bunch of goop up there or something, then
always
then
the
you
exception,
clean it off.
right?
There's always the exception.
Some of that sap, some of the trees can be
It
problematic.
Can. Yeah, it can be.
But there's companies out there.
then-
We have power wash companies and different things if need be, but it's rare, is what you're saying.
Very rare. Yeah. Other than that, there's really no maintenance. It's an electrical device. There's no moving parts. There's no pressure. There's no lubes. There's no wheels.
True.
So it's all electric and non-moving. So there's very, very, very low maintenance.
Yeah. So
that
segues to my next question. Like, is the maintenance requirement, like you said, it's very low? Is there anything we should be thinking about or concerned about other than what you've just described? It doesn't sound like there is any moving parts.
Well,
number one.
a big advantage of solar photovoltaic systems now is the monitoring system. So all the inverters come with a monitoring system, so you can see on your phone, the sun's shining, and my solar panels are making this much energy. That looks about right, or how come it's not making much energy, or whatever. It's instantaneous feedback, and you can get reports by the day, the week, the month, the year, and once you've had them up for a little while, you can say, well, last July I made 832 kilowatts, and this year I made 848. Oh, okay.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That segues into another question on misconceptions and debunking. So, what happens as you compare your solar, impact year to year? Does the solar panel decrease in capacity year over year? What's the age out? We've heard different people talk about, these things were like max 20 years. You've told me something very different, but I'd like the audience to hear.
So all of the solar photovoltaic panels have a 20 or now 25-year performance warranty.
Okay, so warranty.
That's a warranty.
Wow.
That they will provide typically 80% of the original capacity after 20 years.
Wow.
What we typically see in industry is they degrade about 0.5% a year.
Okay.
So after 20 years, they've probably lost about 10% of their nameplate capacity.
So they're warranted for 80, but you're saying they're in likelihood they're more like a 10% drop.
Yeah.
So they're actually performing at 90
Yeah.
after 20 years.
After 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So and then is it the same as it goes beyond that 20 years?
Oh yeah.
0.5% a year?
There's been solar panels out operating for 50 years now.
Wow. Wow. And that's with old technology.
And that's with older technology. That's what I was going to say. So now, like from 18 years ago, panels are twice the power rating than when I first started.
I want to hear that again for the audience. So
my first solar panels were 185 watts.
Right.
And now we're doing 410.
Good grief. On the same footprint.
Basically the same footprint.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a debunk right there. The element of, the last two are kind of somewhat controversial, but having debunked that, I think that's a really good thing for all of us to know that obviously the technology is evolving and it's continually improving worldwide. I mean, this is a worldwide manufacturing process, but we've been told that they're taking up a bunch of farmland, and then secondly, it's very difficult to recycle. I'd like you to debunk a couple of those, and then we'll wrap up here.
Okay. Solar panels can easily be recycled. They're an aluminum frame and a piece of tempered glass, and then some electronic solar cells that are mostly silicone,
Right.
a little bit of copper wire, and a little bit of sealant. But you take out the glass, you take out the aluminum, you can take out the silicone, and you've got a little handful of sealant left.
Right.
Anyways, and all the major components are easily recycled. They're all like a window, and people talk about they're creating this myth we're going to have this huge problem of all these worn out solar panels. Well, first of all, they're not all going to wear out at any one short time.
Yeah.
And it's like recycling a window. Right. So when there's a market, I know that creative people are going to start putting up shops to get that aluminum out of there, which you can 100%. Sell at a scrapper at $1.50 a pound.
Totally.
And the glass that's easily recycled.
Look at computer parts now, right? Catalytic converters are an example. People are stealing them off of vehicles and stuff. Why? Because there's a market for the metals in there. Same thing you're saying with your product.
Yeah. It's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So we're more likely to see large installations after 20 years get repowered.
Interesting.
So especially if you look at from 20 years ago when the panels were 185 watts, and you can repower it 20 years later.
Yeah.
So
you swap out the
watts.
panels.
You swap out the panels, and you'll
Yeah.
use all the same racking.
Right.
You'll use most of the stuff.
And now that's an interesting point too, debunking a little bit of that, because the racking can still remain, which does not have to be recycled. It's just the glass panel, the actual panel that's got to be.
Yeah, most of the wiring and so on. Yeah. Would all be reused.
That's awesome. I think we covered most of the questions I had on the farmland side. I mean, I've got a friend out in. Through a family that's got a contract out for some, I don't know what it is, 40 acres of solar array on his land south of Calgary. I mean, it's a pin dot in comparison to the farmland available. So the conversation and the narrative that all our farmland is going to be taken up by solar, just debunk that a little bit, and then we'll call it a day.
So solar installations are a surface insulation. There's nothing subsurface, right? Even the ground mount racking, it goes down 2 feet. It's like a fence post. Okay. So it's all surface mounted. And the solar developer wants to get cheap land.
Right.
So if you've got good arable land and you can raise good crops on it, then you're not going to lease it out to somebody who uses the surface. There's no subsurface rights. Somebody uses the surface, you're not going to rent it out until they're going to pay you that price, and there's going to be somebody else that's got non-arable land or really marginal land that's worth for very little. Be happy to get some revenue from it. And then the irony of this is that studies have shown when they have this fairly poor land in a lot of places, when they put the solar on, it creates a fair bit of shade.
Oh, interesting.
And it promotes grasses and things to grow.
Interesting.
And then they're running sheep around where they couldn't used to do anything with it before.
Right.
Now you got the revenue from the solar, and you bring a flock of sheep in and let them.
Actually, I was just going to ask you that. Like sheep and goats, their vertical height is lower than cattle, so that offers a grazing opportunity.
They're just not as big as cattle.
Yeah.
Cattle are too big. They bump
Right.
up against it, and
Right.
they break
Yeah.
a panel, right?
Fair enough.
Goats and sheep aren't as big.
The goats might climb on the solar
Might a little
panels,
bit,
but
yeah.
you might want to keep the goats
For
out.
whatever reason, sheep seem to be the preferred. Preferred.
Yeah, that's been awesome, you guys. Thank you for taking the time today, because I think even having some of these myths debunked and just addressing them and not being afraid to address them, I think says a lot about the integrity of Simple Solar and your business model and all of that. Jeff, anything to wrap up a little bit on the electrician side that some people might want to know about?
Well, there are a lot of little details to add to all of those
Indeed.
answers.
Podcast number 2.
Yeah, yeah.
That was lots to cover.
I think that all those answers were great for the time that we have, and if we want to get into more technical detail about anything,
There you go.
I am prepared to do so.
There you go. We'll jump in the weeds and we'll get deep in the weeds. I hope this has been educational for all of you watching, and Tom and Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time here today. We're looking forward to seeing that laneway fully equipped with the solar array. All excited about that. And then we've got a couple of projects coming up we want you guys to get involved in as well with solar array. We've got a client already very anxious to talk about solar. So here we are, November of 2024. Certainly appreciate all of you joining us here today. Hopefully this was helpful. By all means, give us a buzz. Jump on our website, jump on Simple Solar's website, simplesolar.ca.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
PinnacleRenovations.ca is our website. 403-720-8789 is our office number. So by all means, give us a buzz. We can be the triage, if you will, and connect you with Tom and crew. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Tom and Jeff.
Our pleasure.
We'll jump on another one sometime soon, I'm sure. Take care, guys.